Okay, so Tel'arn was a normal elf, and he was obsessed with plants, and he's already dependent on the Nightwell. Now you know what happens when you take substance abuse too far. You split into 3 forms, man, cool! Hey, it's Soul, bringing you the World of Warcraft, and today I'm going to show you folks how I tanked High Botanist Tel'arn in the Nighthold raid. Let's do the loadout first. I went with Blessed Hammer, First Avenger, Blinding Light, Blessing of Spell Warding, Hand of the Protector, Judgment of Light, and Righteous Protector, although you could go for Last Defender too. This boss has 3 phases, and there is a lot going on, just not for the tanks. Most of our job is going to be with positioning and of course, swapping for the tank debuff. Recursive Strikes is the tank debuff, and it causes the tank that is not tanking the boss to take 50% of the damage that the primary tank is taking. This effect stacks, but it's not nearly as painful as, say, Crosus's magic debuff. Just taunt whenever the debuff drops, and that's going to happen throughout the fight. Solar Collapse is when the boss summons 12 of these swirly things, these explosions that's going to start from the outside and then kind of make its way in. The moment you see that, you're going to be running from one point to another, and I'll get to these points in just a little bit. Controlled Chaos is a big purple explodey thing on the ground that, once again, you need to get away from. It starts out small and then gets bigger and bigger. You basically want to reposition the boss and his little friends to a certain point to get away from the explosion as soon as possible. When phase 2 starts, another ad is going to appear, and either you or the other tank can pick it up. Whoever tanks a Soloist is going to pulse fire damage within 4 yards. The Soloist, in my opinion, doesn't require a tank swap, just leave it on one person. If a tank who is not a Paladin is going to hold on to him, make use of some of that good old Blessing of Sacrifice, because between the pulsing damage and the Recursive Strike debuff, you might want to keep an eye on them. The Soloist will also summon these Plasma Spheres. These need to be killed in order, and not in such a way that you're trying to bring them all down at once. Part of our job here is to help direct the DPS and show them which ones they need to kill first. And again, I'm going to get to that in a little bit. Once phase 3 begins at 50%, he's going to split himself again. One is a Naturalist and the other is an Arcanist. The Arcanist is the one that does the Recursive Strike debuff, so that's the one you're still going to be swapping between each tank. Otherwise, just have one person tank the Soloist the whole time, and another person will tank the Naturalist the entire time. The Naturalist spawns these spiky looking spore things. These do a moderate bit of damage to tanks, but you want to be careful because of everything else that's going on. He also casts Grace of Nature, a green pool of stuff that you don't want to tank the bosses inside. This will heal them for 1% of their maximum health every 4 seconds, so you do not want them in these pools. Now with all of that said, this fight is all about positioning for us tanks. We need to make sure that we keep our group safe from explosions, help make sure that orbs are being killed in the right order, and make sure the bosses don't get healed. To do this, we set up markers around the room. We have skull, we have blue, and we have red. These are meant to mark the locations of these fire orbs, and the locations do not change. We set up positioning rules where we're either going to tank the boss on skull or red. During phase 3, when the fight gets more hectic, then we'd move over to blue whenever we need to. During phase 1, there's not a lot going on. Swap the tank debuff, get out of purple, get out of swirlies. During phases 2 and 3, we did our best to position ourselves as close to skull or red as possible. From there, when the fire orbs come out, DPS just focuses on whatever we're standing closest to. That was considered to be the first flame orb target, and the other target would either be skull or red, depending on what we're not standing at. And we just left blue alone for as long as possible until the 3rd phase. This made it so that the movements were, for the most part, a little bit more consistent. That way our DPS and heals know where to stay in range, even if there was a weird explosion that prompted us to kind of move off of the course. But once it looked safe, we just move right back into our position. This helped a ton with the communication. Instead of telling people to kill skull or red, the first flame orb was effectively marked with the boss's location. Of course, the extra cleave damage from DPS and tanks didn't hurt either. The final phase is when the fight gets to its most hectic because there are effectively places in the ground that you just can't stand in anymore. The behavior though didn't change. The team would still go for the flame orb that the tanks are standing closest to. Tank communication though did need to step up a lot. Between our avoiding of explosions, purple stuff, swirly things, and pools, I needed to communicate to the team where I was going and then get there fast. And considering all the ads that the DPS and healers need to handle, communication of that sort helps tremendously. If you want to help with those spores, pop a Blessing of Spell Warding and then run through as many of them as you can. Keep in mind though that if you don't have the legendary wrists that make your blessings last for 15 seconds, Blessing of Spell Warding only lasts 10 seconds and the debuff lasts for 12 seconds. And you take damage every half second, so just be very careful when you're cleaning up the room. That about rounds it out, and hopefully, just like us, you'll get a nice, clean kill. As always, thanks for watching, like and sub for more content, and I'll see you guys at the next boss. Stay breezy, guys.